So for 8.3, problems 39, 41, 43, and a problem kind of like 37 to make up for yesterday. We're going to talk about what they want from us. They're saying tangent of some angle, right, is equal to, or approximately, because they rounded it off, right? So it's approximately 3.5. So what they really want you to do is just do the opposite of what's happening, the inverse of what's happening, right? So what's happening is you're taking some unknown, right? In this case, theta, right? And so, well, how do we find an angle? Do you remember yesterday? How do you find an angle?
Inverse?
The inverse of Soh Cah Toa, right? The inverse of Soh Cah Toa. Okay, so we're going to get tan inverse of 3.5 is equal to theta, right? And so we plug that in, the second tangent, and then 3.5 equals 74 degrees. And that's it. Okay? Now in this one, they're saying that tangent or sine or cosine, but something of this angle is approximately this much. So what you want to do is you try out each angle, right? Say, hey, well, let's see what sine is. Sine of 42. Well, that's 0.66. That's not the same, is it? All right, let's try cosine of 42. And that's 0.74. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're just looking for cosine here. So you're just trying some things out. Does that make sense? Is this thing on? Good. All right. So the next one says it's a sine inverse of some number is 69 degrees, right? So they're trying to get this, right? So the fraction, the sine, the opposite over adjacent, or the opposite over hypotenuse, right? Right? So the fraction, the ratio of the sides, right? So what we got to do is the opposite of the inverse, or the inverse of the inverse, which would be sine 69 degrees, right? That should give me this number. So that should give me approximately that number. And that's it. So just sine 69 equals 0.93. Okay? And that's it. That's all you're doing there. So a lot of 8.3 was just calculator work, right? So I will have some of those problems on the test, but this is the biggest thing I'm going to have on the test right here. Yes, sir.
When you have to do like sine inverse and tangent inverse, do you do the second function?
Yes. Always that second function.
But when you do it, just
But
like
when you
that.
do just sine, you just hit sine 69.
Okay.
Good question. So when we want to do this, right, and it's a right angle, if it's a right angle, I know Soh Cah Toa works, right? Tomorrow we're going to learn about cosine law of sines, where you don't need a right angle. But Soh Cah Toa, and you need to write that every single time, okay? And just remember, the way I have this written is so that you can see how it would be, right? Now, I got to think of what angle do I want. So, if I want this angle, theta, then I'm going to look at this side as being opposite. I'm going to look at this side as always being the hypotenuse, and this side is being adjacent, right? And so now I know that the sine, I can do sine, cosine, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I can do anything I want, right? So, which one you want to do, sine, cosine, or tangent? Sine? Cosine? I'm going to do cosine because we never do cosine. We've done sine, we've done tan. Everybody wants to do those. For some reason, those are the big winners, right? But cosine's the guy who's always left out. And guess what they throw on the test sometimes?
Cosine.
Cosine. Yes, ma'am.
On the midterm, there's like a point that I'm supposed to do, which you did plus.
I'm going to put the last one. So if you want, you can just put a 1 there or any number you want, and I'll check it and see if it's right. Thank you, hon. Yeah, so with cosine, I know that that's adjacent over hypotenuse, right? So that means that the cosine of theta is equal to adjacent 24 over hypotenuse 25, right? And this is exactly what we're doing up here. If I want to find the angle, I got to find the inverse, right? So I have to take cosine inverse of 24 over 25 to be theta. And then it's just calculator work. Second, cosine 24 divided by 25 equals 16.26. Right? So that's 16.26. So then I subtract that from 90 and I get 73.73. 74. So 73.74. Okay? And that's how you find your angles. It's that simple. Okay? Now I could have found this 73.74, right? By doing the same thing. Remember, if I went opposite, now adjacent becomes opposite. Hypotenuse stays the same, but the opposite becomes the adjacent for the green, right? Because if I'm talking about phi, remember? So phi is different than theta, right? So if I want phi, I know phi is 73.74 because I subtracted it from 90. I subtracted theta from 90, right? But I could have found it just like I found this with cosine or sine. Somebody wanted to do sine, right? So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? So then I would do sine phi is equal to opposite 24 over hypotenuse 25, right? And then if I do that, sine, so I can't plug that in yet, right? I've got to do the sine inverse of 24 over 25 should equal phi. Okay? Alright, so inverse sine 24 divided by 25. Oops. 73.74. Okay. So again. So we could have started with any direction. And that's what 8.3 is all about.